Paul, I need to know how to say your last name.
Riedl, like read a book. R-I-E-D-L. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I'm just gonna do a little introduction, but welcome to Loops. Thank you for being here as part of my, the beginning of this podcast. The guest, you're actually the second guest on here, which is fantastic, and thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Casey here too, and we're tucked away in this little corner. Paul, the reason why I asked you to come on is because aside from, as you mentioned, kind of your main gig with Blood Incantation, you have another solo project coming out.
I have many projects. In fact, I'm a man of many hats.
You said you're calling it your first solo album, right?
Well, so yeah, and which I understand is a little misleading because I have released certainly no less than 45 solo recordings. But this is my first on vinyl 12-inch that is not like a re-release of a tape or some other thing where they're like, here is this obscure item and then now here's the real version of it. This one was recorded specifically for this project in mind. It's not released until the vinyl comes out. And so in that capacity, I consider it my first solo LP, even though if you were to ask me in a separate interview, I'm still working on my first solo album, which is tentatively titled Demystification, which is not Ocean of Peace, but I'm still working on that, and that will be a more
is that under your name?
Yeah. That's because I've been for like 10 or 15 years. I've been like, I have a lot of projects. I have like Hovercraft, I have Extraterrestrial, I have Moonwatcher, I have Hanging Moss, I have a bunch of different type of stuff that I do just for fun. That's like noise or
you dip your toes everywhere.
Like, I do. I like music. Music is the secret, my friend. That's all. So it's like everything in the life is sound. Everything in the visible, audible spectrum is the frequency. Frequencies have a pitch once it enters an audible range of hearing for the human ear, and the biology, all the stuff. Like every single thing happening is a frequency, is a vibration, is a music, etc. The harmony of the universe, symphony of the spheres, etc. And to me personally, my entire life, I've only ever been motivated to explore and archive whatever I discovered during those types of expeditions into whatever subgenre. The label's for somebody else. It's not for me. People are like, you make ambient music, you make death metal, you make doom metal. I don't care about. I just make music.
You make ambient music.
I make ambient music.
You have your album Ocean of Peace.
Of Peace.
SFI Recordings?
Yeah. It stands for Soma Free Institute. It's one of the fella Andrew Crawshaw running the label is in the band Soma Free Institute.
Is that here in Denver or is that?
No, they're from Seattle, but I've known Tim from Oregon because growing up, he ran a label out there called Parasitic Records and it's in a bunch of bands and stuff. Because last year, so I've done like all these different projects with like, Forest of Pluto, Hanging Moss, Hovercraft, yada, yada, all this stuff. But I never did anything under Paul Riedl. And I've been doing solo stuff since 2008 and I never just did my name ever.
What was the change? What was made you want to do it now?
Most of them are like a concept. You know what I mean? I'll be like, I want to start a dark ambient band or do it not a band, but I want to do a tape that looks like this or sounds like this. And so I'll make either the layout fit a recording I already had and I'll just be like, okay, this sounds like this type of an aesthetic. So I'll just build the layout and then release it as that. Or I'll be like, I want to release something that looks like this. So I'll make the tape layout and then I'll record something to fit it and then I'll adjust the track times. You know what I mean? For the first ambient mixtape I made, Volume 1, which was in 2021, I just made it for my friends. It wasn't released. I just dubbed maybe 40 to 60 copies, and I just gave them to my buddies because if you've hung out with me in person anywhere around a musical instrument, specifically synths or acoustic guitars or whatever, I'm going to be fiddling around, and I'll play some silly melody, and someone's like, oh, what is that? I was like, I don't know. I was just, whatever. I just...
Putting it together.
Yeah, while improvising. I couldn't remember it or play it again. And so then at the same time, this is 2021.
Which wasn't that long ago at all.
No, it wasn't that long ago. But so my main band, Blood Incantation, we're working on our ambient album, Time Wave Zero. And we had put out a death metal record in 2019 called History of the Human Race. But
very good record, by the way. If anybody's listening, you should definitely check it out.
It is very heavy, but it's a little out there.
Heavy's good.
Exactly. But so in 2020, when everything was shutting down, we were already planning to make our third record, like an ambient record on purpose. It's like when we started the band back in 2011, we're like, this is what we're going to do because it's so easy to bother people on the internet because everyone's so fucking uptight. And so we're like, why would we not make a logo that looks like that, make a Klaus Schultz Jam Dream style record? Why not? just because you on your forum said that I couldn't do that. That's crazy.
This is the problem, because
you know?
we sat down here and I told you right away that I hadn't heard it yet, and I really wish that I had.
You should. It's great. I'd say, honestly, in my opinion, it's my favorite Blood Incantation record. It's fucking ridiculous, but all through 2020, we had a whole world tour for Hidden History planned. We lost like 2 European tours, 2 US tours, a Southeast Asian tour, Japan, Australia. It was fucking brutal. It was really brutal. Obviously, everyone else had to deal with the same thing, so it sucked. But during that time, we were still like, well, the next record needs to be ambient. And so we were just practicing our normal 3 to 5 day schedules, because we've kept to the same practice schedule since about 2012 or 13. And we jam 3 to 5 days a week unless we're writing or going on tour, and then we'll do 6 to 7. But we just kept going to practice all through COVID, and we just took down all the guitar amps and the drums and everything, and we just all set up a bunch of synthesizers, and we're working on all that stuff. And in order to really do pre-production, you have to be able to record it. So we invested in like a computer, an interface, like, you know, into little mixers, all this stuff, so we could record and archive these practices so that we could capture ideas. You know what I mean? So we wanted to increase the ambient aspects little by little in a progressive linear strategy, right? So each album has a little bit more sense. And so during this writing process for Time Wave Zero, we're just improvising for all 2020. And then we didn't buy the computer and all that shit until, I want to say early 21, late 2020. Like,
Okay.
You know, so we were jamming still 3 to 5 days a week for almost an entire year.
You had the time to do it?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We couldn't go on tour, you know, and like I haven't worked a regular job, knock on wood, for 4 or 5 years. So it's 4 years, I guess. So it's like, you know, we had the luxury of being able to just live for our art. And so we gestated a bunch of these crazy ideas. And during that process, I was also at the space by myself. Once we got the interface and I could record and I could do all the multi-tracking and all this stuff. So the first thing I did with that technology, once we got it, was an album for one of my projects called Hovercraft with a K, which I've been doing since 2010. I put out a Hovercraft promo tape that I just sent out to some labels because I was like, maybe I would try a little more, because most of my tapes are not serious. I'm not actually composing anything. I'm not deliberately doing something. I'm just recording whatever happens in that improvisation.
Are you recording for like hours? Are you recording?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where we're going to get up to 21. Check it out. So in 2020, I did this Hovercraft promo tape, and I was like, it's still kind of a little too lackadaisical. I want to make something that's concise. I've been making improvised raw noise ambient tapes for fucking 15 years. I'd like to make something that's, you know, conceptually concise, as well as, you know, composed and written in a way that is meaningful beyond merely improvisation, as much as I live improvisation. So I make the Hovercraft tape 2021. My dad had died the month before, and so I just like cracked something open inside of me where I was like, I couldn't get in the zone from 2014 to 2020, but then when my dad died in 2020, I was just like so open, you know. I like it you know, it hurt, but I was also like way deeper in my own self than I had been for a really long time.
But you were doing it through mostly instrumentals.
All instrumental, yeah.
All instrumental.
Yeah. I started making all these recordings, you know, like hundreds of hours, man. Like most of it totally unusable, but
does it still exist? Or
absolutely, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Well, so I did 5 ambient mixtapes, volumes 1 through 5, and some of them are 80 minutes long. Catching us up back to speed to this month, 2023. April
2023, the release month.
The release month for
April
Ocean of Peace.
Right? April 28th?
I think it's, 27th, 28th. Okay. But so Ocean of Peace, I recorded last year after getting all these mixtapes out of my system. Like 6 or 7 hours of music, plus Time Wave Zero, plus the Hovercraft Schwabe music. I really, like, I got a lot.
I don't even know how
out,
you're able to organize all this.
I'm not. I'm a disorganized person. You know, I'm a disorganized person. But
you knew that you
in every chaos, there is a secret order, you know?
Okay.
So I decided some of these songs, I was like, so what happened with Ocean of Peace specifically, now that we're up to date, this was last year, a little earlier than a year ago. So I think it was January, February, March, somewhere. But I recorded this particular, this all comes down to, during these mixtapes, I'm expanding my compositional palette with the utilization of looping as a conscious songwriting device versus just making loops and then building loops as they go and letting the looper keep having the stuff, and then, you know, the song starts with 2 parts and then ends with 30, you know. That you do that so many times and it's kind of whatever. So I started using it consciously to be like, I can pre-record loops and then I can bring them in after the fact while I improvise along to these other loops that are happening. So I can make a loop change the scene of the song by fading that one out and fading this pre-recorded loop up or whatever. And so for Ocean of Peace, I made this track, which is actually the first track on the album, called Two Oceans, and it's very beautiful, very posy, very chill. It reminds me of like, yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of like Aeolia or Steve Roach or like early 80s West Coast private press new age tapes. It's very chill. It's very different also from Hovercraft or Extraterrestrial. That's another reason why it's definitely under my name, because it's like, I could, even in my posy sounding ambient bands, I've never made something that beautiful or that positive sounding. And I made this track, Two Oceans, and I was like, damn, I need to do something like this more. And so what I was doing for this track was I have this, it's a multi-track looper made by Electroharmonics called the 2880. It was actually designed by Reggie Watts, the comedian musician. And it's designed for...
Well, he's a big looper.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
designed for
thing.
his type of approach. He wants to be able to control it. So what you can do... there's actually a bigger version called the 45,000, which maybe I'll need to get at some point. But
it's $45,000.
Yeah, they're expensive. But the 2880 is a 4-track looper. Each channel you can adjust the volume, you can reverse it, you can detune it, you can pan it, you can do all these things, right? And so it really elevated my ability with the looping, because previously I was using 3 separate loopers, a Boss DD7 times 3, where I would record this loop, which is a rigid 43-second maximum loop. And then I'd make another one, and I would blend them together in a Roland Space Echo, or actually a Chorus Echo. It's a RE301.
A synth?
No, it's a tape echo. And so it uses a reel of tape, like a magnetic tape, to create a soundscape. And so normally they use for like very good delays. It sounds incredible. Like, there's analog delay, digital delay, but a tape delay is really the nicest one, obviously. But the 301 Chorus Echo has an option called sound on sound, which in the late 70s, early 80s was a proto looping format, where so the original tape that I got for this was only 1 meter long, and the loop, like if you were go and make a sound, it repeats after about 20 to 30 seconds because it's only 1 meter long. So I installed a 4 meter long tape into this thing, which extended the repetitions till about 43 seconds, which means I could record 43 seconds of music before anything starts to repeat out of the tape echo.
So it's a true like seamless loop.
It is, but it changes every time, because what you recorded 43 seconds ago, every single time you put something in, like if we go 43 seconds later, it'll pop up, but slightly quieter with a little bit more tape warble, a little bit more distortion. And each repetition is going to degrade in quality. Like that's the advantage of tape, and
physically degrading in quality.
Yeah, literally. And so each sound that you input into the tape echo with the sound on sound activated will not be the same sound you hear 43 seconds later on this 4 meter tape loop. So
what does that do to you?
It allows me, with this multi-track looper, the Electroharmonics 2880, to, let's say all 4 tracks are up, full volume, playing the loop, let's say. Also, I've yet to discover the length limit of this device. I've made like 20-minute plus loops on this, and it doesn't stop me. Like, I don't know the limit of the 2880s. So what this did for me was it drastically not only revolutionized my ability to create long form pieces that move organically while retaining a loop bass, like let's say I make the riff, I make the song or whatever, and then I'm like, I can expand this in a very organic way. And the advantage of it specifically that I like is that it's never the same twice. That's why I wasn't able to do this until we had this recording set up in the Blood Incantation practice space. And it took me 2 years to figure out how to do this, right? So let's say I have all 4 loops playing at the same time. If I bring one of them down, the loop from 43 seconds ago with all 4 at the same level is still playing, but now it is no longer there. So you're hearing an echo of what was playing before, deteriorating gradually in conjunction with whatever new input I'm putting into it through this looper. So if I pan something, if I adjust the volume, if I reverse it, if I slow it down, if I can change the pitch even with this thing, all of that changes the real-time listening experience, as well as what it comes out of the tape echo 43 seconds later. And so I was making this song, the first song, Two Oceans, and I was like, damn, this is what I need to do, rather than just record every improvisational section and take 10% of them and put out a mixtape 5 times. I was like, now that I got all that out of my system, I can make deliberate looped based ambient music that is not simply a loop playing 16 times for 8 minutes. You know what I mean? It changes each time. And
welcome to loops, by the way.
Yeah, and welcome to loops.
This must have been a perfect fit.
This is where we are. So,
and you were making these loops and then inserting them or bringing them in, fading them out, whatever it is that you wanted to do with them.
And the tape echo
already
modulates
having the loops kind of ready to go.
No, I make them as they go. Well, so actually, so half and half. So for Two Oceans, it's you're listening to me play in real time and make loops in real time that I then modulate with the tape echo or the individual mixing channels of the looper in real time. So
I dare to ask then, is that the Two Oceans that you sort of refer to, or is that the ocean theme?
Well, so the ocean theme in general, I'm into water themed music. I like water as an element, as a concept, as an aesthetic. I like the idea you never step into the same river twice. That's kind of the specific thing of like the tape echo. You make this ocean of sound that you can never step in the same twice, just like real life. You're moving, everything goes on, even if it's based off of a loop. What you're hearing on the recording is never the same twice.
Things wash in and wash out, and they all kind of
so
all part of the same
ocean of sound
organism.
And I wanted to specifically, I made a lot of harsh noise, I made a lot of dark ambient, I made a lot of brutal type of metal, and I really want to make peaceful, chill as fuck ambient, like beautifully transcendental, calming, holistically healing music for people. You know what I mean? Because life's fucking is pain, brother. There's enough dissonance in this world. There's enough aggressive shit. I'm in bands that are brutal for brutal's sake. I get it. There's a bunch of hate. There's a bunch of brutality. There's a bunch of noise. There's a bunch of dark, dissonant energy. It's totally cool. And I actually used to do that back in like 15 years ago. I made the harshest, most dissonant, noisy drone I possibly could for fun, because it was fun to be antagonistic, to be like, we had a house that had shows in the basement, and we would book a legit band and then make all the audience play, like we would play improvised noise, like harsh noise, dissonant, fucked up soundscapes in pitch black. And then when we turned on the lights at the end of the show or end of the set, and one person out of the 60 is down there, we would consider that a success. We were like, we made all these people leave. So I empathize with people who want to make dissonant music. I personally don't have a need. I'm 36. I've been making aggressive, confrontational music like literally over half of my life. My first band was when I was 15, 21 years ago. And I've made so much aggressive, dissonant music. I've personally contributed to emotional distress in other people. I've personally contributed to the distance of the universe, and all these things. And so I'm really trying to make stuff that can, if someone can listen to and be like, wow, I felt it took me out of the humdrum for like 20, 30 minutes or 60, 80 minutes or whatever. It made me self-reflective. It made me introspective. It made me, abstain from over-analyzing all of this shit that causes me distress or anxiety in my life. And a lot of people in the past have been like, I like your ambient stuff, but it usually always resolves to dissonance. Like I'll make it beautiful for a couple tracks, and then I get it spookier and darker as it goes, because I'm a lifelong metalhead in like dozens of metal bands, like,
and so, it's sort of like an evolution.
Yeah,
it's a growth in any sort of song, especially if you're going to have something that is 15 minutes long, 20 minutes long or something like that. It's go
good to
in
do
certain
both.
places. Exactly.
But
that's one of the beautiful things about like drone,
exactly,
that it can be peaceful. It can be peaceful if you want it to, but for somebody else it's going to be something that just totally throws them out of loop,
Exactly. And it's heavy, it's aggressive, it's powerful, and I still like that stuff, exactly. I still like to be feeling those emotions, but I also have this insane weight on me from contributing to so much dissonance in human life, whether it's interpersonal or emotional, or with my bands or with music I make, like actively to create things that make people uncomfortable, which I did for decades, you know what I mean? But I really just, like I said, my dad died. I hadn't been able to make solo music for 7 or 8 years, and it cracked something open where it's like, all I want is to listen to something so chill. I just want to listen to something so peaceful. I don't want it to resolve to noise or dark ambient or drone. I just want to make peace for peace's sake, you know what I mean? Something that someone could listen to in a meditative context, at a spa, at a float tank, yoga studio, whatever. Natural grocers, I don't care. but something that is not going to make somebody uncomfortable for the sake of them being uncomfortable for my art. I wanted to make something that was genuinely positive. So I make Two Oceans, and I'm like, this is where I got to go. Then, due to the discourse I have sowed in this life of my own personal volition, I incur a huge stress where I'm like, this is one of the lowest, most fucking lost and shitty I have felt and been stuck in for 10, 15 years.
Did that have to do with your dad's death? Or?
No, not even. It was a bunch of other stuff. Like I said, I didn't sow any discourse to result in my dad's death. But in this situation, I had instigated some shit that it was coming back to bite me in the ass, and I had to deal with my repercussions like a man, and I had to soak it up. So while I was in there trying to exercise this energy, I simultaneously am trying to write stuff deliberately where I write the loop and then I play along to the written loop and I improvise to the written part. So I make a kind of merger of these two concepts, right?
Never really heard anybody of writing a loop, You
right?
kind of any sort of idea that you hear, it was something captured.
Yeah.
This is something that was kind of, you initially designed it.
I wrote it this way. So we have Two Oceans as established as free improv, free form. I'm just playing alive to the loop, and I recorded it. There are no overdubs. I made that, like when you hear it, that's how it sounds. And so then I go back to the space next day or two. The first time I did it, I was like in such distress that I just automatically reversed it, and then I recorded a sound on sound collage of it playing in reverse. And I was like, whoa, this is kind of compelling. And so then I added a couple overdubs to the sound on sound reversed collage of the written loop. That song is called Searching for Light. It's the first track that's released for the album.
The second track
on the
album.
album.
I know this is going to be a question that for people that don't live in Denver don't care, but did you see William Basinski at High Dive when he came last year?
Incidentally, I was actually asked by Maggie Moody at the High Dive to play this show as Paul Riedl. Nice. But I was in Texas playing with both Blood Incantation and Spectral Voice at a festival called Oblivion Access.
Damn.
So I was unable to. He also played, but he didn't have to drive down there with a bunch of gear. He just flew or whatever. So
Trip Nasty opened up. That was fun. And then William Basinski, at the end of the show, he pulls out the tape, and it's just translucent.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, look at how translucent this tape is because of just how many times
all the oxide is flaked off. Yeah, exactly.
And we're talking about, this is just a surface level understanding of what he's doing. But, he has like two different tape machines kind of set up, going on a huge strand across his table. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if these are original tapes. I don't know if they're tapes where he's taking some loops and then put the tapes in there. But they end up totally clear, which is so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the ferric oxide that is on the tapes flakes off and it gunks up the tape heads. So like a reel-to-reel tape recorder, a tape echo, the tape player in your car, or my Suzuki Sidekick, they get gunked up because the ferric oxide physically flakes off and gets stuck in the reels. You know what I mean? So when I first heard back the second track,
Searching for Light,
the reason I gave it this title, one, I was in a considerable distress at the time, and so I was truly searching for my own personal inner peace as well. But this is last year, early last year. But since I'm playing the loop initially backwards and then I'm overdubbing onto it, I also went back and I snuck in a few overdubs of the regular loop playing forwards, which is what the B-side is. But because they're all the same loop, but playing forwards and backwards, they go off, they drift away from each other, but when they sync up, they give that harmonious sensation of searching. You're like, oh, is it going to resolve into the key that the other part of the loop is? And when it does, the light shines through the storm cloud of the track. But when it doesn't, you're in the maelstrom of tumult and personal distress, And
so eventually in the track, it happens.
Eventually it happens. Yeah, it bleeds back and forth between like the forward version and the reversed version are playing against each other while I'm overdubbing on top of them. And it creates that tension. That's why it's the searching in the title.
Is there a difference between you listening to this work at the end of the day and making it? You know, I mean, you're talking
Well,
about the kind of the searching for that light.
Yeah.
It comes in together at a certain point, right?
And then it goes away, and you can't get it back because it's all tape, and the loops are different each time. You know, so it's.
So when you listen back to it, I mean, is it serving a different purpose? You know, when it's somebody listening to the record, for example, and then when you were making it.
My hope would be that the sensations I felt making the track are what a person listening to it can also feel. Where I was searching for an answer or some type of peace in my own inner tumult, and that if a person has convoluted headspace and emotional distress, that this can help resolve that for them in the way that it did for me physically making it, regardless of listening to it. Like I just made it, and by the time I finished making all these different pieces of the track, I felt a lot better.
I do want to know, like when you were making these tracks, you mentioned that they gave you a certain, you know, emotional feeling. Can you kind of go back to that? Is this something that you can ever like describe?
Well,
I mean, that's maybe what the music is for.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I don't really necessarily. I don't want to intellectualize it because it's an emotional experience for me personally, as the person who was making this stuff at that time. Like I was just immersed in the moment, and I wanted to make something that would give me some type of an inner peace, you know, amongst this other stuff. Yeah. Or whatever.
So let me ask you this, because when you sent me over the record, you said it's only the half of the record.
It's
really.
only half the record, absolutely.
Because you again, it was such a explicit project. You made it of record with SFI recordings at 45 rotations per minute, and then you said that you can also listen to it at 33 and a third.
And it adds about 8 minutes of playing time.
Is that? Well, I mean, aside from just the question of like, what was the intention for that? Is that designed to be even more chill?
Absolutely. Simple as, brother. Simple as. That was all it was. And that's all I'm trying to do, man. I'm just trying to make positive music to make someone having a hard time have an easier time.
This is sort of a silly question because you can't really divide anything that you do in your life. But like, is it something that is completely distinct from the work that you do with all these other bands?
Yeah. It's easy for me to keep them all separate. I've never been in a band where I can be like, oh, is this riff for this band or this band?
Is it purely because of the genre? Or?
No, it's just each riff has its own vibe. You know, I don't write the riff, man. The riff. I find the riff, I find the song, I put the song. The song tells me where to put the riff, basically. I don't have to deal with that, you know. That's not my department. I just get to play the guitar.
No, you're right. What you're kind of explaining with sort of how you use the tape is different from even a lot of more like renowned ambient artists that I think just do that. They do, let's see what I can do with effects to see where a sound goes. And if you're really patient, it works.
Get there, yeah.
You know, for me, for example, like I can listen to, there's, I don't know if you've heard of Bibio. He made a great ambient record called Phantom Brickworks that is piano-based.
Good album title.
Super good. I think he probably recorded it in a church or something like that, you know? And I think that is much more just linear in terms of like the loop repeating itself over and over. I think of another artist, like he's in New York, KMRU, where you got to be real freaking patient to really kind of immerse yourself into that world. And this is sort of like a moving organism.
It is. That's the thing. And also,
and to me, you say it's, sorry to interrupt you, but it's like, you know, you're working with these synths, but at first I just think of strings. That's why I think of something like Stars of the Lid, because of just how sweeping it is, you know?
Well, you know, I do have a 70s string synthesizer called the Krumar Orchestrator, which was used by Klaus Schultz and Tangerine Dream, which is why I bought it. They actually were sued by Solina, who made the Solina String Ensemble, which was like the disco late 70s synth, you know? So like their ladder filter for the strings
that's great.
They were sued by Solina.
So that was probably everywhere.
Yeah, it was quite a good sound. And you know, that's just the sound I really like, man. I really like to listen to these old, you know, you got string synths, you got mellotron, you got electric guitar, you got some drums, like, you know, old Tangerine Dream, Klaus Schultz. I just really like it, man. I've always been into that, and even those bands, they don't necessarily sound that way anymore or whatever. But I just want to make stuff that is like I said, I don't want to try to intellectualize something that's inherently an emotional experience, you know what I mean? But I just want some, if it can zonk you out for a mere 30 minutes, if you're willing, if you have the time and space and the mental bandwidth to accommodate my 80-minute mixtapes, I encourage you. But if you haven't, like most of us, you know, a 30-minute LP, 45 RPM, you can chill. And then if you're a little more relaxed, you can be like, what's it like on 33? And because there's no vocals, because there's no drums, it works really well. And actually, I was just talking about this with my buddy before we came out here. So this record was actually supposed to come out last year, at the end of the year.
Okay.
But I had to reject the test pressing, the first one, which had no imperfections or errors at all. It was just cut at 33, which is normal for a 30-minute LP. You know what I mean? So
But you wanted to cut to 45.
I had to do it, and it was against, it sucks to be like, I finally have, I've done, like, no joke, I've personally hand dubbed like no less than 6,000 or 8,000 cassettes in my life. And, I've been on a lot of tapes, a lot of ambient noise, whatever tapes, plus obviously the metal stuff on the other side. But just myself, I've personally made like, almost 10,000 tapes by myself, but, or no problem. But I finally get an LP, right? That's not a reissue. That's
True.
the thing.
Yeah.
Back to the Ocean of Peace. It's like, it's not, I've been on, back in the early 2000s, what was cool to me and my friends was you put out a cult tape and then you dupe some label into reissuing it on an LP. That was the style.
Yeah.
And I did that a couple times, but this was the first one where it's like, I made this for a record like this exactly. And it's there was no error with the cut. It was just at 33, which is how the record sounds when it was recorded. It was like, that's how it should be, And also it provides an alternate listening experience at 45, but that wasn't what I was really trying to do. So I had to go, even though I was so excited to be like, I got a solo LP coming out right now, I was like, I have to reject this totally adequate test pressing in order to facilitate the artistry behind the concept. And so now here we are 4 or 5 months later.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
No, it's not too bad. No,
That's
it's not
big
too
a
bad.
deal. At the end of the day, when it comes to just waiting for your record to come out, and heck, man, you're already in the month that it's coming out.
I'm
so
coming. Yeah, it's coming out.
I want to ask you a couple of questions, and then I want to wind down.
Easy.
Have you ever been to? This is another like local question, but like, have you ever been to Rangeley, Colorado? They have
no, is that where the big silo is though?
The big silo is.
Yeah,
I wondered
I want to go there. I've not been there. I actually obviously want to record in there. I follow them on Instagram.
Recording or performing there,
absolutely.
I think it's like a really good idea.
Absolutely, that's exactly. What's it called? It's called the fucking. It's a really simple name. It's like the Tube or something. What is it called?
It's like it's like the Hope Tank or something. Like
something tank.
It's the tank.
Is it just the
just
tank?
tank.
Yeah. But
I saw some new age lady there from like freaking.
Is it the flute lady, dude?
She did not have.
Okay, because I followed.
She had the bowls, the singing bowls.
That's what I'm trying to do. I just want to live in that world, Like I'll go on tour with my death metal band and I'll play the show and you can come, but I really want to be the old dude with the skullet with the singing bowls in the tank. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Where the vacuum's about to come out.
Vacuum's coming.
I did want to. Here, let's do this right now. Do you mind if I take your photo?
Yeah, of course.
I got a little Polaroid. Do you mind if we just go outside?
Absolutely. Neil's from so good. Yeah, Gareth Quinn Redmond. The album is called R.A.'s Aris from 2023. This is an absolute, staggeringly profound, monumental ambient masterpiece. Absolute 10 out of 10. Gareth, incidentally, so we met on Instagram. And
okay,
how much more boomer could I sound? But we met on the internet, and on Instagram, and I sent him some Ocean of Peace rough tracks in Instagram in the portal, and he was like, "Can I?" Because he plays violin and stuff for viola, and he was like, "Can I add some strings to this?" And I was like, "Ooh, you know what? I actually do need that component, and I want you to do that, but." Seeing as this is my first solo LP where it's just me, it's on vinyl, it's not a reissue. Like I just got to have this for my own personal archive, like as it certainly would probably be a better record if he contributed to it. But with that said, he will likely we will collaborate at some point in the future. But this record, it hit me. Is only an ambient record could hit me with like a ton of bricks. I was like, it was arrestingly chill. It was fucking so good.
Well, by that point, you had already recorded Ocean of Peace.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and he was like, let me add some
for the
stuff.
future.
Yeah, and I was like, next time, let's do this next time. You know what I mean?
Paul Riedl, thank you so much. Ocean of Peace coming out April 28th.
He says 28.
This one came out a little ruined.
Oh, we'll do another one. Oh, you know what? That's a great one, I think.
All right.
It's art, brother.
Your head. Your aura.
My head is clouded. I smoke enough weed for 10 lifetimes.
Oh man.
Also, I think this is
I believe you.
This is really funny because It's like this is exactly what Ocean of Peace sounds like. You're trying to make something concise, and then human error, natural elements, the chaos of life, the river of life, the ocean of spontaneity, it reveals some type of slightly different thing. And yet, is that, I mean, Casey, you've known me for 15 years. Isn't that Paul Riedl right there?
Yeah.
It's a little foggy. It's a, you know what I mean? Like, it's, I think this is perfect, Miguel. I think this is the best
Beautiful.
picture.
Well, shouts out to the Polaroid for
That's
fucking
right.
up. I do have one last question for you, Paul.
Surely.
I ask this to everybody that I interview. What is your favorite loop?
Oh,
This can be something that either you created as a sample, a song, a sound.
loop.
What is your favorite loop of all time?
Favorite loop of all time.
You can get pretty close too. I know there's a lot of good ones.
There are a lot of good loops.
Civilization.
Yeah, that's the secret, though. You know, we just pop up and
History
we,
repeats itself.
It does. It does.
does,
You know,
doesn't
everything
it?
old is new again.
It does.
know?
This is just but a blip in time.
Truly. It would seem easy to say something like Aphex Twin because he's really good at that. You know what I mean? He's really good at that. But I honestly kind of think, shit. To be honest, it might even be somewhere on one of my obscurest mixtapes, because like I only made these loops to be like, I gotta record this for later, and then you can't replicate it, you know. So,
Yeah.
But even something like Ambient 1, technically he's not playing that. It's systems based, you know what I mean? He's letting the loops play. Brian Eno for Ambient 1. Music
Oh,
for
Ambient
Airports,
1.
yeah.
Okay. I
But-
thought you meant your mixtapes.
No.
Okay.
But I also kind of feel like that's maybe perhaps too basic of an answer. But, you know, but if it wasn't a Brian Eno loop, it would probably be a Aphex Twin or a cluster loop. If I just had to just guess, I can't name a name, but I would be like, one of those guys are masters at that. They could like you would not know it was a loop, you know.
You also
No.
cannot go wrong at all with Ambient
yeah.
1.
No,
That's
you can't.
why Ambient is the way it is.
It is. So
Paul Riedl, thank you so much for talking with me. I
My pleasure.
appreciate this time outside, and looking forward to your record being out.
I'm looking forward for you to hear it at 33 because I know you've heard it at the 45, which is
I
all
know,
right.
gotta get it.
But it's truly an immersive alternate experience that was like, it's worth the 5-month wait from rejected test pressings of a totally adequate initial cut at 33.
And with that, thank you very much.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
I'd say Aphex Twin. Aphex Twin's rhubarb is.
He's got some fun.
Is
Yeah,
that from Selected Ambient Works Volume 1?
I'm 2. Two.
It is volume 2.
It's the one that's got that crazy beat. You know what I mean?
No, it's like.
Dun,
I
dun.
normally don't think of